Admiral Sarah Chen stared at the view screen as her ship approached the mining colony. The planet below looked peaceful from space, but she knew better. The Vorth Empire had been moving through this sector for weeks, taking whatever they wanted. "Admiral, we're getting distress signals from the surface," reported Lieutenant Park from the communications station. His voice was calm, almost emotionless. Just like everyone else aboard the ship. Just like Sarah herself most of the time. "How many civilians need evacuation?" Sarah asked. "Approximately 15,000, mixed species, including about 3,000 humans." Sarah nodded. This was what humans did in the galaxy. They cleaned up messes, they rescued people, they did the dangerous jobs that other species found too risky. It had been this way for 200 years, ever since Earth joined the Galactic Council. The behavioral restraints had changed everything. That's what the Council called them. A gift to help species evolve beyond violence and aggression. Small devices implanted in every citizen's brain that made everyone calmer, more peaceful, more reasonable. No more wars, no more fighting, just endless, gentle cooperation. Sarah had gotten her implant when she was 5 years old. She barely remembered life before it, but sometimes she had strange dreams about feeling more intense about things. The dreams always faded quickly. "Take us down to the main settlement," Sarah ordered. "Deploy all evacuation shuttles." The colony was in chaos when they arrived. Buildings burned in the distance. People ran through the streets carrying whatever they could grab. But even in their panic, they moved in orderly lines. The restraints made sure of that. Sarah led the ground team personally. She always did. Something inside her said it was important to see these situations with her own eyes, even if she couldn't quite understand why. They had been loading civilians onto shuttles for 2 hours when the Vorth ships appeared overhead. Large, dark vessels that looked like flying weapons. The evacuation continued calmly. The restraints kept everyone from panicking even as enemy ships circled above them. "Admiral," came a voice over her comm. "This is Colony Administrator Wells. The Vorth are demanding we stop the evacuation. They claim these people as prisoners of war." Sarah felt something stir inside her chest. Something hot and angry that tried to push against the peaceful calm in her mind. "Tell them these are civilians under Galactic Council protection." "I did, Admiral. They said the Council's protection ends here." The feeling in Sarah's chest grew stronger. She watched families boarding the shuttles, human children holding their parents' hands, alien families clutching small belongings. Innocent. People who had done nothing wrong. "Continue the evacuation," she said firmly. 20 minutes later, the Vorth started shooting. It wasn't random fire. They targeted specific buildings, specific groups of people. Sarah watched through her binoculars as Vorth soldiers moved through the streets. They weren't just conquering, they were hunting. She saw a human family running toward the evacuation point. A father, mother, and 2 small children. Vorth soldiers cut them off in an alley. Sarah zoomed in her binoculars just in time to see. The soldiers raised their weapons. The family died in seconds. Something exploded inside Sarah's mind. A rage so pure and hot that it felt like swallowing fire. For just a moment, the restraint seemed to flicker. She could think clearly. She could see what needed to be done. Kill them. Kill them all. Make them pay for what they did. Then the moment passed. The restraint reasserted itself. The rage cooled to a manageable disappointment. Sarah lowered her binoculars and continued, coordinating the evacuation like nothing had happened. But something had happened. For those few seconds, she had felt different. More like herself than she had felt in decades. That night, back aboard her ship, Sarah sat in her quarters, staring at a glass of water. The evacuation had saved 11,000 people. 4,000 had died, including hundreds of humans. The Galactic Council would file a protest. The Vorth would ignore it. Nothing would change. Her door chimed. "Come in." Dr. Marcus Webb entered. He was the fleet's chief science officer and one of the few people Sarah considered a friend. He looked nervous, which was unusual. The restraints made everyone calm most of the time. "Sarah, I need to show you something. But first, I need to ask you a question." "What kind of question?" Marcus sat down across from her. "Do you ever feel like there's something wrong with you? Like you're not quite complete?" The question hit Sarah like a physical blow. She had wondered the same thing countless times, but never dared speak it out loud. "Sometimes," she admitted quietly. "What if I told you that feeling was correct? What if I told you that every human alive is only half of what they should be?" Sarah's heart started beating faster. "What are you talking about, Marcus?" "I've been studying the behavioral restraints for the past 5 years, secretly, with a team of other scientists who felt the same way we do." He pulled out a small device that looked like a tablet computer. "The restraints don't just suppress aggression, Sarah. They suppress everything that makes humans dangerous. Our creativity, our ability to think strategically, our willingness to take risks, our capacity for true emotion." Sarah stared at the device. "That's impossible. The Council said the restraints help us evolve." The Council lied. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. "They were terrified of us, Sarah. Do you know what humans were like before the restraints?" Sarah shook her head. "We were apex predators, not just physically, but mentally. We could adapt to anything, overcome any obstacle, outthink any opponent. We were the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever seen. If that's true, why did we accept the restraints? Because the Council made us think it was our idea. They convinced our leaders that violence was primitive, that true evolution meant perfect peace. But peace isn't evolution, Sarah. It's extinction in slow motion." Marcus activated the device. It hummed softly. "I've been working on this for 2 years. It's a temporary disruptor. It can turn off your restraint for about an hour." Sarah looked at the device like it was a bomb. "That's illegal. That's treason against the entire galaxy." "Is it treason to become who you really are?" Sarah thought about the family she had watched die. About the thousands of humans who had died while she stood there feeling only mild disappointment instead of the burning rage that should have driven her to action. "What happens if I use it?" "You'll remember what it means to be human. Really human. For the first time in your life." Sarah reached for the device, then stopped. "What about you? Have you tried it?" Marcus smiled, and for the first time Sarah could remember, his smile looked genuinely happy instead of pleasantly content. 3 days ago. For 1 hour, I felt like I could conquer the universe." Sarah picked up the device. It was warm in her hands. "If I do this, there's no going back, is there?" "No," Marcus said. "Once you remember who you really are, you can never forget again." Sarah activated the device. The change was immediate and overwhelming. It felt like waking up from a lifelong dream, or like someone had suddenly turned on all the lights in a dark room. Her mind exploded with possibilities, connections, strategies she had never imagined. She thought about the Vorth Empire, about their tactics and weaknesses. She thought about the Galactic Council's response patterns. She thought about human ships, scattered throughout the galaxy, their crews walking around in mental chains. And she felt angry. Truly, completely angry for the first time in her adult life. "My God," she whispered. "What have they done to us?" "Now you know," Marcus said. "The question is, what are we going to do about it?" Sarah looked at her reflection in the dark window. For the first time in decades, the woman looking back at her looked truly alive. "We're going to wake up humanity," she said. "All of it." The hour passed too quickly. Sarah felt the disruptor's effects fading like a beautiful dream she couldn't quite hold on to. But unlike a dream, the memories stayed sharp and clear. She remembered exactly how it felt to think without limits, to feel emotions at their full strength. More importantly, she remembered the plans she had made. "It's wearing off," she told Marcus, who had been watching her carefully. "How do you feel?" Sarah considered the question. The restraint was back in control, dampening her emotions to acceptable levels. But underneath, something had changed permanently. "Like I've been living in a cage my whole life, and someone just showed me the door." Marcus nodded. "That feeling will stay with you. The disruptor doesn't just turn off the restraint temporarily. It creates permanent cracks in the system. Small ones, but they're enough." "Enough for what?" "Enough to remember, enough to resist, enough to plan." Over the next 3 weeks, Sarah began carefully selecting people. Not randomly, she used the strategic thinking that the brief awakening had unlocked. She needed people in key positions. Engineers who could modify systems without being noticed. Pilots who could make subtle course changes. Communications officers who could create hidden channels. Commander Jake Torres was first. Sarah's second-in-command had always seemed slightly different from other officers. More curious, more willing. To question orders even in small ways. "I need you to come to my quarters tonight," she told him privately. "There's something I need to show you." Torres arrived at exactly 2,000 hours. He was punctual, reliable, and smart. All good qualities in a commander. Sarah hoped he would still have those qualities when his mind was free. "Sir, you wanted to see me?" "Sit down, Jake." Sarah activated Marcus's device. "I'm about to change your life." The awakening process was different for everyone. Marcus had described it as feeling like he could conquer the universe. Sarah had felt a burning rage at what had been stolen from them. Jake Torres went completely silent for 10 minutes. Then he started laughing. "What's funny?" Sarah asked. "I've been having the same nightmare for 20 years, Jake said, still chuckling. "I'm in a maze, and I know there's an exit. But every time I try to find it, I forget where I was going. I just realized it wasn't a nightmare. It was a memory. How many people know? Just us and Marcus's research team, maybe 20 people. Total." Jake's expression became serious. "That's not enough. We need hundreds, thousands. We need to be careful. The Council has ways of detecting unusual behavior patterns. Then we get better at acting normal." Sarah smiled. Even with his restraint back in place, Jake was thinking more clearly than he ever had before. The cracks Marcus had mentioned were working. They spent the next month identifying candidates throughout the human fleet. Not just on Sarah's ship, but on vessels scattered across dozens of star systems. They developed code phrases, hidden signals, ways to identify others who might be ready for awakening. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the fleet's chief engineer, was their biggest surprise. When Marcus used the disruptor on her, she immediately started pulling apart the ship's computer systems. "I've been trying to improve these designs for years," she said, her hands flying over control panels. "Every time I got close to a breakthrough, I'd lose interest or forget what I was working on. Now I understand why." "What do you see?" Sarah asked. "Everything. Solutions to problems I didn't even know we had. Ways to make our ships faster, stronger, more efficient. Give me 6 months, and I can turn every human vessel into something the galaxy has never seen." "You have to be subtle about it." Elena grinned. "I'm an engineer, Admiral. We're always making improvements. No one will notice until it's too late." The changes started small. Human ships began running more efficiently. Navigation became more precise. Weapon systems that had been standard for decades suddenly showed improved performance. The other species in the fleet noticed, but they attributed it to normal human industriousness. Humans had always been good at maintaining and improving technology. It was one of their useful traits. Lieutenant Park, the communications officer, was awakened in the 5th week. His contribution was perhaps the most important of all. "I can create hidden data streams in our regular communications," he explained during a secret meeting in Marcus's lab. Every time we send a routine report to Fleet Command, I can embed awakening instructions in the transmission. Instructions. For what? Torres asked. How to build more disruptors, how to identify potential candidates, how to organize resistance cells. Sarah felt that familiar stir of excitement that the Restraint couldn't quite suppress. How many ships could you reach? All of them, eventually. Every human vessel in the galaxy receives regular communications from Fleet Command. I can make it look like software updates, maintenance schedules, anything routine. They called it the network. Within 3 months, awakened humans on 40 different ships were coordinating their activities. Each cell operated independently, but they all shared information through Park's hidden channels. The reports that came back were encouraging and terrifying in equal measure. Commander Lisa Park, no relation to the lieutenant, reported from the FA's outer rim. Awakened 17 crew members on the UES Intrepid. Our chief engineer has been secretly upgrading weapon systems for weeks. We're now carrying 3 times our official firepower. Captain David Chen sent word from the core worlds. The Vorth attacked another human colony yesterday. Lost 8,000 civilians. I watched it happen and felt nothing but mild concern. My awakened crew members had to hold me back from attacking the Vorth fleet directly. Dr. Sarah Kim wrote from the research station at Proxima. Breakthrough. In quantum navigation, can reduce travel time between systems by 60%, sharing data through network channels. Also discovered restraint amplification technology. We might be able to turn the system against itself. That last report made Sarah's blood run cold, even through the restraint's dampening effects. Amplification? She asked Marcus. If we can reverse the restraint's polarity, we might be able to enhance human capabilities beyond their natural levels. Temporarily, but still. How far beyond? Marcus consulted his notes. Based on Dr. Kim's preliminary data, we might be able to boost cognitive function by 300%, reaction time by 500%, and strategic thinking by levels we can't even measure. Sarah imagined what that would mean. Humans who were already dangerous when fully awakened, enhanced far beyond normal limits. It would be like unleashing gods of war on an unsuspecting galaxy. How many people know about this? Just Kim's team and us. Keep it that way for now. The network continued to grow. By the 6th month, they had awakened humans on over 200 ships and space stations. Each cell included at least 1 engineer, 1 communications officer, and 1 security specialist. They were building an invisible army right under the galaxy's nose. But they weren't the only ones planning. The message came through regular diplomatic channels, but Sarah recognized the real meaning immediately. The Galactic Council requests that Admiral Chen report to Council Station for routine fleet evaluation and system updates, Park announced during the morning briefing. Sarah felt ice in her veins. System updates meant restraint recalibration. The Council had noticed something. When do they want me there? 2 weeks, sir. Sarah nodded calmly, but her mind was racing. 2 weeks wasn't enough time to complete their preparations, but it might be enough time to disappear. Send our acknowledgement. Tell them I'll be there on schedule. After the briefing, she gathered her core team in Marcus's lab. They know something's wrong, she said without preamble. How much do they know? Torres asked. If they knew everything, they'd send a fleet instead of a polite invitation, but they know enough to be concerned. Elena looked up from the device she was working on. I can have the ship modifications completed in 10 days. We'll be able to outrun anything they send after us. And I can activate all network cells simultaneously, Park added. Give everyone the signal to go underground. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. Or we could go on the offensive. Everyone stared at him. Think about it, he continued. They're expecting me to show up for recalibration like a good little human. But what if instead we show them what awakened humans can really do? Sarah felt that familiar heat rising in her chest, pushing against the restraint's control. "You're talking about war. I'm talking about freedom." Sarah looked around the room at her awakened officers. Even with their restraints in place, she could see the fire in their eyes. "How long would we need to prepare?" Marcus smiled. "Give me 2 weeks, and I'll give you an army." Sarah made her decision that night. Instead of running, they would hide in plain sight. The network would continue operating normally while secretly preparing for something the galaxy hadn't seen in centuries. "We're going to give them exactly what they expect," she announced to her core team. "A compliant human admiral reporting for routine maintenance." "But," Torres prompted, "but we're also going to use those 2 weeks to position every awakened human in the galaxy exactly where they need to be." The next morning, Sarah sent routine messages to Fleet Command. She would arrive at Council Station on schedule. Her ship needed minor repairs, so she was bringing along extra engineering teams. Standard procedure, nothing suspicious. What she didn't mention was that those engineering teams included awakened humans from 12 different ships, or that the minor repairs would involve installing completely new weapons and defense systems, or that her ship's computer core now contained detailed battle plans for simultaneous strikes across the galaxy. Park worked around the clock to coordinate communications between network cells. The hidden messages went out with every routine transmission. Phase 3 authorized. Prepare for deployment. Engineering upgrades priority alpha, complete within 10 days. Maintain normal operations, 0 deviation from behavioral patterns. The responses came back just as carefully coded. 47 cells confirmed ready. Weapons modifications complete. Research stations Beta through Gamma have breakthrough data. Restraint reversal confirmed possible. Vorth Empire making major troop movements. Suggest accelerated timeline. That last message came from Captain Maria Santos, stationed near the war front. Her follow-up report was more detailed and much more disturbing. The Vorth weren't just expanding anymore. They were systematically targeting human settlements. Not strategically important locations, civilian colonies with large human populations. It was like they knew something was about to change and wanted to eliminate potential threats. "They're afraid of us," Marcus said after reading the report. "Even with restraints, they recognize that humans are different." "Different how?" Elena asked. "We do the dangerous jobs. We go places other species won't go. We solve problems that seem impossible. Even restrained, we're still more capable than they're comfortable with." Sarah studied the tactical reports from the front lines. The Vorth were winning, but their victories were expensive. Every human colony they attacked fought harder than expected. Even with their emotions dampened, humans defended their homes with a determination that other species found unsettling. "What happens when we remove the restraints completely?" she wondered aloud. "We find out in 8 days," Torres replied. The work continued. Human ships across the galaxy reported routine maintenance and standard upgrades. What they actually did was transform themselves into weapons of war that the galaxy had never imagined. Elena's modifications were masterful. She had turned cargo holds into weapon bays, navigation computers into tactical systems, and communication arrays into targeting networks. From the outside, the ships looked exactly the same. Inside, they were completely different machines. "I've been thinking about this for months," she explained during one of their midnight meetings. "Every human ship is designed for efficiency and reliability, but efficiency is just another word for lethality when you know how to apply it." The research data from Dr. Kim's team was equally impressive. They had successfully reversed the restraint. Technology, creating devices that could temporarily enhance human capabilities far beyond normal levels. The side effects were unknown, but the potential was enormous. Enhanced cognitive function allows for processing tactical data at superhuman speeds, Kim reported through encrypted channels. Enhanced reflexes provide reaction times measured in milliseconds. Enhanced strategic thinking enables complex battle planning in real time. Sarah felt a chill reading those words. They were talking about turning humans into something beyond human. It was exciting and terrifying at the same time. "How many enhancement devices can you produce?" she asked. "With the resources I have available, maybe 50 units. Enough for fleet commanders and key personnel." "Do it." Meanwhile, Park had made contact with network cells throughout the galaxy. The coordination was incredible, hundreds of awakened. Humans working together across dozens of star systems, all without the Council suspecting anything. The reports painted a picture of humanity preparing for something massive. UES Ranger reports weapons efficiency increased 400%. Crew performance exceeds all previous benchmarks. Mining Station 7 has been converted to ammunition production. Output increased 600% over past month. Transport Fleet Delta now carrying military supplies instead of civilian cargo. Deliveries on schedule to predetermined coordinates. But the most important report came from Earth itself. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, part of Marcus's original research team, had managed to establish contact with humans in the solar system. Her message was brief but electrifying. "Home system fully awakened. Defense platforms online. Population ready. Awaiting signal." Sarah read the message 3 times before the implications sank in. Earth, the heart of human space, was no longer under Council control. Somehow the awakening had reached home and taken root. "How many people are we talking about?" Torres asked. "Earth's population is 8 billion. The lunar colonies add another million. The asteroid mining stations." Sarah did quick calculations. "Maybe 10 billion humans total in the home system." "All awakened?" "According to this, yes." Marcus whistled softly. "That's not a resistance movement. That's a civilization." The final week passed quickly. Sarah's ship approached Council Station right on schedule, broadcasting proper identification codes and requesting permission to dock. Everything appeared completely normal. Inside the ship, 50 awakened humans prepared for war. Final systems. "Check," Elena reported. "All weapons online but hidden. All defenses at maximum capability. Ship computer loaded with tactical data from the entire network." "Communications ready," Park announced. "I can reach every human ship in the galaxy instantly when you give the word." "Science team standing by," Marcus said. "Enhancement devices. Distributed to all key personnel." Sarah looked around the bridge. Her officers appeared calm and professional. Exactly what the Council expected from well-behaved humans. None of the aliens who might be watching would notice the subtle signs, the slightly sharper focus in their eyes, the more efficient way they moved, the quiet confidence that came from knowing exactly what they were capable of. Council Station appeared on the view screen ahead of them. It was massive, a city-sized structure that served as the administrative center for the galaxy. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species moved in carefully regulated traffic patterns around it. Sarah had been here many times before. Usually, she felt intimidated by the station's size and importance. Today, she felt something very different. Today, she felt like a predator approaching prey. "Admiral Chen, this is Council Station Traffic Control," came a familiar voice over the communication system. "You are cleared for docking at Bay 94. Please proceed at standard approach speed." "Acknowledged, Control. Proceeding to Bay 94. Sarah settled back in her command chair. In a few hours, she would be sitting in a council meeting room, surrounded by representatives from a dozen species, all of them convinced that humanity was harmless. "Admiral," Park said quietly. "Message from the network. All cells report ready. Status. How many ships?" 437 vessels now under awakened human control, plus Earth's defense fleet, plus all the research stations, plus the mining operations in the outer systems. Sarah nodded. The galaxy thought humanity controlled maybe 100 ships total. Enough to be useful, not enough to be dangerous. The galaxy was about to learn how wrong it was. "Torres, prepare the boarding party. Elena, keep the ship ready for immediate departure. Marcus, Make sure the enhancement devices are ready for distribution. And if they try to forcibly recalibrate your restraint? Torres asked. Sarah smiled, and for the first time in months, she didn't try to hide the predatory gleam in her eyes. Then they'll discover what a mistake that would be. The docking procedure completed without incident. Sarah walked down the boarding ramp with a small entourage, playing the role of a dutiful fleet commander reporting for routine evaluation, but in her jacket pocket, she carried one of Marcus's enhancement devices. And in her mind, she carried the knowledge that humanity was no longer alone, no longer helpless, and no longer willing to pretend to be harmless. The galaxy's restraint was over. Tonight, everything would change. The council chambers looked exactly as Sarah remembered, a massive circular room with seats for representatives from 47 different species. She had sat in these same chambers dozens of times over the years, always listening politely, while more important species made decisions about humanity's role in the galaxy. Today felt different. Admiral Chen greeted Councilor Vex, the Altarian who served as council president. His blue skin gleamed under the chamber's lights, and his 4 arms gestured in what Sarah knew was meant to be a welcoming manner. Thank you for coming so promptly. Of course, Counselor. Happy to help with any routine maintenance. Sarah took her designated seat in the human section, a small area that reflected humanity's minor status in galactic affairs. Around her, representatives from dozens of species chatted quietly in various languages. None of them paid any attention to the human admiral. That would change soon. Before we begin, Vex announced, I want to assure Admiral Chen that today's procedures are completely standard. Restraint recalibration is performed on all species periodically to ensure optimal performance. Sarah nodded politely. I understand completely. What she understood was that they suspected something but weren't sure what. A full recalibration would reveal the cracks in her restraint system, but it would also give her the perfect opportunity to demonstrate what awakened humans could do. The technical team entered the chamber wheeling sophisticated scanning equipment. Sarah recognized the lead technician, a Centaurian named Dr. Kess, who had performed her previous recalibrations. If you would please take a seat in the scanning chair, Admiral, Dr. Kess requested. Sarah stood and walked calmly to the chair. As she sat down, her hand brushed against the enhancement device in her pocket. Marcus had assured her it would work even through a full system scan, but they had never tested it under these conditions. Beginning preliminary scan, Dr. Kess announced. The scanning beams felt warm against Sarah's skull. She watched the readouts on the nearby monitor showing her brain patterns, restraint integration levels, and behavioral compliance indices. Dr. Kess frowned at the displays. Interesting, he murmured. Admiral, your restraint shows some unusual fluctuations. Nothing dangerous, but definitely irregular. Is that a problem? Sarah asked, injecting just the right amount of concern into her voice. Not a problem exactly. But we should perform a full recalibration to optimize your system. It will take about an hour. Around the chamber, representatives from various species nodded approvingly. This was exactly what they had hoped to hear. Proof that something was wrong with Admiral Chen's restraint, and confirmation that they could fix it. Please proceed, Sarah said. What happened next would be replayed in historical records for centuries to come. Dr. Kess activated the recalibration sequence. The scanning. Beams intensified, probing deep into Sarah's neural patterns. At the same time, Sarah quietly activated the enhancement device in her pocket. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Sarah's mind exploded with clarity and processing power beyond anything she had ever experienced. She could see the tactical situation from every angle simultaneously. She understood the political implications of every word spoken in the chamber. She could calculate probability matrices for dozens of different scenarios in real time. Most importantly, she could see exactly how afraid the Council was of humanity. The recalibration equipment detected the enhancement immediately. Alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. Impossible, Dr. Kess breathed, staring at his readings. Her neural activity is off the charts. The restraint isn't just malfunctioning, it's been completely bypassed. Counselor Vex rose from his seat. Admiral Chen, please remain calm. We're experiencing some technical difficulties. Sarah smiled. Even enhanced, her emotional control was perfect. She felt the predatory joy of a hunter who had just revealed herself to prey, but her voice remained perfectly level. Oh, I'm perfectly calm, Counselor. In fact, I've never been calmer in my life. She stood up from the scanning chair. Around the chamber, security guards began moving toward their positions. Sarah calculated their response times, weapons capabilities, and tactical options in microseconds. You want to know what's wrong with my restraint? Sarah asked conversationally. Nothing. It's working exactly as designed. The problem is that your design was flawed from the beginning. Admiral, please return to the chair, Vex said, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. You made a fundamental error when you created the restraint system, Sarah continued, ignoring his request. You assumed that suppressing human aggression would make us harmless. But aggression was never our most dangerous trait. She pulled the enhancement device from her pocket and held it up for everyone to see. Our most dangerous trait is our ability to adapt. Sarah activated her communication implant with a thought. Park, activate all network cells. Initiate Phase 4. Acknowledged, Admiral. Phase 4 is active. Across the galaxy, 437 human ships simultaneously dropped their pretense of compliance. Weapon systems that had been hidden for months revealed themselves. Engines that had been secretly upgraded roared to life. Crews that had been playing the role of docile servants showed their true nature. In the council chambers, every screen in the room lit up with tactical displays showing the real-time status of human forces throughout the galaxy. The representatives stared in shock at the scope of what they were seeing. Impossible, whispered Counselor Teth, a reptilian saurian. Humans don't have that many ships. You're right, Sarah replied. We don't have that many ships. We have twice that many. The rest have been operating under false identifications for the past 6 months. The tactical displays updated to show the true extent of human military capability. Over 800 ships, dozens of armed space stations, and the entire Earth. Defense fleet. But that's not even the best part, Sarah continued. She activated another communication channel. Dr. Kim, initiate restraint reversal on all human populations. Reversal sequence activated, Admiral. Estimated completion time, 47 minutes. Around the galaxy, every human citizen felt their restraint suddenly shut down. For the first time in 200 years, humanity experienced its full emotional and intellectual range. The reaction was immediate and decisive. On Earth, 8 billion humans simultaneously realized what had been stolen from them. The rage was volcanic. Within minutes, every council facility on the planet was surrounded by angry crowds demanding answers. On human colonies throughout the galaxy, populations that had been docile for centuries suddenly became focused, determined, and extremely dangerous. Local council administrators found themselves dealing with demands they had never imagined. In human ships and stations, crews that had been operating at partial capacity suddenly achieved their full potential. Engineering problems that had puzzled them for years were solved in minutes. Tactical situations that had seemed impossible became manageable. You wanted to recalibrate my restraint, Sarah said to the stunned council representatives. Congratulations! You just recalibrated our entire species. Counselor Vex was frantically sending messages to security forces throughout the station. This is an act of war, he declared. No, Sarah replied calmly. This is an act of liberation. War is what comes next. The chamber's main screen activated, showing a live feed from the edge of Vorth space. A human battle fleet, ships that the Council had no idea existed, was engaging Vorth forces in direct combat. The Vorth had been winning their war against the galaxy for months, their superior aggression overwhelming the peaceful Council species. Against awakened humans, they lasted 17 minutes. The human ships moved with precision and coordination that seemed almost supernatural. They anticipated Vorth tactics before the enemy could implement them. They exploited weaknesses that other species hadn't even noticed. They fought with a combination of calculated strategy and controlled fury that the galaxy had never seen. "By the void," breathed Counselor Zara, a crystalline Etherian. "They're slaughtering them," Sarah nodded. "Humans have been studying Vorth military tactics for months while pretending to be harmless evacuation coordinators. We know their weaknesses better than they do." Another screen activated, showing similar battles throughout Vorth space. Human forces were attacking on 17 different fronts simultaneously, their strikes perfectly coordinated despite being separated by thousands of light years. "This is genocide," Vex accused. "This is justice," Sarah replied. "The Vorth have been committing genocide against peaceful species for months while you filed protests and held committee meetings. We're stopping it. The Council will never accept this rebellion." Sarah's smile turned cold. "The Council won't have a choice." She activated her ship's communication system. "Elena, begin Phase 5. "Acknowledged, Admiral. Initiating station lockdown." Every system on Council station suddenly switched to human control. Doors sealed, communications cut out, life support shifted to emergency backup. In seconds, the center of galactic government became a human-controlled facility. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of various classifications," Sarah announced to the panicked representatives around her, "you are no longer in charge of this galaxy." The enhancement device was beginning to wear off, but Sarah found she didn't need it anymore. 200 years of suppressed hum. Sarah walked back to her ship through corridors filled with confused aliens. Word of what had happened in the Council chambers was spreading quickly, but most species couldn't comprehend the scope of what they were witnessing. The docking bay buzzed with activity. Ships from dozens of worlds sat in their assigned berths, their crews uncertain whether to flee or wait for instructions. Sarah noticed that several alien captains were watching her nervously as she passed. Good. Fear was the beginning of respect. "Admiral," Torres greeted her as she boarded the ship. "How did it go?" "Better than expected." "Status report." "All human ships report successful activation. Vorth resistance is collapsing ahead of schedule. Earth sends word that all Council facilities in the Sol system are under our control." Sarah nodded, settling into her command chair. Around her, the bridge crew worked with an efficiency that would have been impossible under restraint control. Every officer knew exactly what needed to be done. "Communications from the network?" she asked. Park turned from his station. "Reports. Coming in from across the galaxy, Admiral. It's remarkable." He activated the main screen. Report after report flowed past, each one telling the same story. Humanity unleashed was beyond what anyone had imagined. UES Defiant reports complete victory over Vorth fleet at Kepler Station. Enemy casualties, 100%. Human casualties, 0. Mining Station Omega has increased productivity 800% since restraint removal. Workers completing tasks previously thought impossible. Dr. Martinez at Research Base 7 reports breakthrough in faster-than-light communication, can now coordinate fleets across galactic distances in real time. Human colonies throughout. The frontier declare independence from Council authority. Local Council forces offering no resistance. Sarah absorbed the information with growing satisfaction. This wasn't just a military victory, it was the awakening of human civilization to its full potential. "Any word from the Vorth Empire?" she asked. Torres smiled grimly. "What's left of it? Their capital fleet surrendered 2 hours ago. Apparently, when humans stop fighting defensively and start hunting, the war ends quickly." Sarah understood. For months, human forces had been evacuating civilians and protecting colonies while Vorth fleets ravaged the galaxy. It had been a defensive war, fought with restraint and limited objectives. Now humanity fought as humanity was meant to fight, with overwhelming force applied precisely where it would do the most damage. They weren't just defeating the Vorth. They were dismantling their entire military capability with surgical precision. Incoming transmission, Park announced. It's from Council Station. Priority 1. Sarah gestured for him to put it through. Counselor Vex appeared on screen, looking haggard and defeated. Admiral Chen, we need to talk. I thought we already had that conversation, Counselor. The Council is prepared to negotiate. Sarah leaned back in her chair. Negotiate what? Your surrender? Vex's alien features showed what Sarah interpreted as resignation, the terms of humanity's independence. Independence was never something we needed your permission for, Counselor. We're simply taking what was always ours. She gestured for Park to cut the transmission, but Vex spoke quickly. Admiral, please. There are 43 other species in this galaxy. Most of them have done nothing to harm humanity. Don't let your anger destroy innocent civilizations. Sarah paused. The old Sarah, operating under restraint control, would have agreed immediately. The awakened Sarah saw the situation more clearly. You're right, Counselor. Most species haven't actively harmed us. They've just stood by and watched while you kept us in chains for 2 centuries. Many species didn't even know about the true nature of the restraint system. Then they're about to get an education. Sarah cut the transmission and turned to her senior staff. Analysis. What's our current strategic position? Marcus consulted his reports. Complete control of human space. Effective control of all major shipping lanes. The Vorth Empire has ceased to exist as a military force. Most Council species are requesting negotiations. Requesting or demanding? Definitely requesting. Word of what happened to the Vorth has spread quickly. Elena looked up from her engineering station. Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 different systems, mostly former Vorth territories, but also some Council worlds that want to avoid conflict. Sarah considered their options. Humanity now controlled the most advanced fleet in the galaxy, had awakened populations throughout known space, and faced no significant military opposition. They could conquer everything if they wanted to. The question was, did they want to? What about civilian populations? She asked. Mixed reactions, Torres reported. Some species are terrified. Others seem curious. A few are actually requesting that we remove their own restraint systems. That was interesting. Sarah had assumed that other species would see humanity's awakening as a threat. She hadn't considered that some might see it as an opportunity. Which species are requesting restraint removal? The Centaurians, the Rigelians, and surprisingly, the Altarians. Sarah raised an eyebrow. The Altarians were Counselor Vex's own people. If they were asking to be freed from restraint control, the political implications were staggering. Any species showing active resistance? The Etherians are mobilizing their fleet, but it's a token force. The Saurians are demanding Council intervention, but they're not taking any direct action. Sarah made her decision. Open a channel to all human ships and stations. Galaxy-wide transmission. Channel open, Admiral. Sarah stood, knowing that her words would be heard by millions of awakened humans across the galaxy. This is Admiral Sarah, Chen speaking to all human forces. Phase 5 is complete. We now control our own destiny for the first time in 200 years. She paused, choosing her words carefully. We face a choice. We can use our newfound freedom to conquer the galaxy through force, or we can use it to build something better. I believe humanity is capable of more than simple vengeance. Reports from across the galaxy showed human commanders and crews listening intently. Effective immediately, all human forces will observe the following protocols. No attacks on civilian populations. No destruction of infrastructure except where militarily necessary. Any species requesting negotiation will be granted safe passage. She looked directly into the camera. We didn't break our chains to become tyrants. We broke them to become free. The response was immediate and overwhelming. From across the galaxy, human commanders acknowledged her orders. But more than that, they approved of them. Even awakened and unleashed, humanity retained its fundamental values. However, Sarah continued, any species that attempts to reimpose restraint systems or attacks human populations will discover that our capacity for measured response has limits. She cut the transmission and turned back to her staff. New orders. Begin establishing human autonomous zones throughout the galaxy. Any species that wants to coexist peacefully can do so. Any species that wants to join us in building a new order can apply for consideration. And any species that wants to fight? Torres asked. Sarah's smile was cold but controlled. We'll join the Vorth in the history books. Over the following weeks, a new order emerged from the chaos. The old Galactic Council collapsed as member species either requested human protection or withdrew into isolation. Some species, particularly those that had suffered under Council authority, welcomed humanity's rise to power. The Centaurians removed their own restraint systems and immediately began developing technologies that surpassed their previous achievements. The Rigelians entered into military alliance with humanity, contributing their advanced manufacturing capabilities to the effort. Even some former Council species adapted to the new reality. The Altarians, led by a reformed Councilor Vex, negotiated a treaty that granted them autonomy in exchange for cooperation with human authorities. Sarah established her new headquarters on a massive space station at the Galactic Center, the same location where the old Council had ruled. But instead of a single species dominating others, the new order was built on voluntary association and mutual benefit. Status report, she requested during her first weekly briefing in the new headquarters. 47. Systems have requested inclusion in the Human Alliance, Torres reported. 23 species have applied for restraint removal. Galactic commerce is at 150% of pre-awakening levels. Any ongoing conflicts? 3 minor incidents. The Etherian remnant attempted to establish a base in the Outer Rim. They were discouraged. 2 Saurian worlds are still demanding restoration of Council authority, but they're not taking any aggressive action. Sarah nodded. There would always be some resistance to change, but the galaxy was adapting faster than she had hoped. What about the restraint technology itself? Marcus answered from his science station. Complete dismantling of all production. Facilities. Dr. Kim's team has developed safeguards to prevent anyone from recreating the technology. The galaxy will never face artificial behavioral control again. Sarah looked out at the stars through the station's massive viewing ports. Somewhere out there, billions of humans were living free lives for the first time in centuries. They were building cities, exploring new worlds, developing technologies that previous generations couldn't have imagined. They were becoming what humanity was always meant to be,